Okay, so we talked about in that original video about the standard deviation. All right. So what is the standard deviation? Let me give you the definition and then let me give you the real world use of it. An important characteristic of the data is the variation. So we want to know how that data is related to the mean. And we talk about how spread out it is from the mean. So one way that we can look out how spread out the data is something called the standard deviation. So the standard deviation is a number that measures how far data values are from their mean. So what it tells me when I look at that standard deviation is it tells me, okay, from my mean, this is a standardized way that I can see how the data is spread out. And that sounds kind of weird, but it's an easy way once you understand it to get it. So what we do is for our standard deviation is I look at the mean and then I look at my standard deviation and I can estimate that each time I look on my standard deviation, say my mean is 10 and my standard deviation is 2. So whatever I do on one side of the mean, I have to do on the other. So I roughly can think of 68% of the data is between 8 and 12 because my mean was 10, my standard deviation was 2. So to get on the lower side of my mean, I do 10 minus 2 is 8. To get on the upper side of my mean, I do 10 plus 2 is 12. And that's kind of how it works. So I do this example called the cruise example where I want to go on a cruise and I want to make sure that I know people who are going to be there on my own age. So if I say I'm 25 and there's 2 cruises, one where there are people who are 25 exactly, but there's a standard deviation of 8. But then there's another cruise where the people are 28, but there's a standard deviation of 2. I'm going to pick that cruise where the mean age is 28. And why am I going to do that? Is because I have a smaller standard deviation and it keeps the ages closer to that average age. When I have a huge standard deviation, it pulls it way out, and then I have all sorts of ages on that cruise. So a data value that is 2 standard deviations from the mean is just on the borderline of what statisticians consider too far from the average. So I really try to I like to know that my data is 2 standard deviations from the mean on both sides. Remember about that, below the mean and above the mean. So it's not always hard press rule, but that's a way that we look at it. If we have our data that's in that pretty bell shape, 95% of the data is between 2 standard deviations from the mean, and that's a lot of my data. I mean, 95%, I've captured a lot of people in that group or a lot of items that I'm looking at, and that's acceptable. Okay, here's the formulas. Again, why don't I care about the formulas? Because Minitab does it for me. You can have a sample standard deviation and you can have a population standard deviation. I'm really not even going to go into theory about this. I just want you to know it's how we tell how spread out the data is. And then another thing we might use is called variance, and we won't really get to variance until we do a ANOVAs. But all the variance is the square of the standard deviation. And again, you can have a sample variance or a population variance. Okay, so that was standard deviation and variance, and I'm going to keep going in a minute and showing you how to put these in Minitab.